Shalom, shalom, Rastafari. This is just a comment on the I want to give a actually, credit to the brother Priest Isaac, man. He did a good job in handling the Israelite what's it, Bishop Nathaniel of the ICIU, the IUIC, you know what I mean? And we don't even know what the uproar is with a lot of these brothers and sisters nowadays. They just I think that, and let's be real with it. Why don't they understand who the King of Kings, Qedamawi, Haile Selassie, JAH Rastafari, the conquering line of the tribe of Judah? What is it that they really don't understand about His Imperial Majesty? Why can't they? Why they can't see it in the Word? Why they can't see it in the Torah? Why are they not able to fulfill the word of the Torah by understand that His Imperial Majesty is the Father Christ in His kingly character in the second advent of Christ, right? And no one said anything about His Majesty. There is no. First of all, I don't know if the man has said reincarnation, because we were watching the Priest Isaac vid, and we don't know if the man said reincarnation or if he said incarnation. Incarnation of Christ, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So they can incarnate between each other, or they all three can appear. And those of us with that spirit, we know that the Almighty has thousands and thousands of saints, angels, prophets, for that matter. I wouldn't even go there with the prophets as far as thousands of prophets in that sense. But then too, actually everyone is supposed to be a prophet, so that can even be said that way too. Even though we know those there are those prophets that are of the truth, and then there are those prophets that are of what is not the truth. But the point that we want to make here, the word that we looked up, that you brothers need to be aware of the spirit. You know what I mean? That spirit, and it's interesting too. What's funny, man? It's I didn't even notice it until now, but it's got almost like a 9/11 ring to it. Horma. And I look at the events that transpired when the Israelites, dealing with this Hebrew word horma. You know what I mean? Some will relate to karma, even. Even like the word karma. Some people like that word. You know what I mean? So as far as in the situation, from what I know, the way that they use the word karma, from the relative knowledge of it, like what people think the knowledge of the word is karma, right? Which is supposed to be like a what goes up comes down, or what you put out comes back to you. Like kind of a universal reflex, if you would. You know what I mean? Like a spiritual reflex, a psychological reflex, and to a large degree, dealing with the Almighty. When we are dealing with the Almighty, that is true to a large degree. Just like we know, I think that within this Torah portion, we're in a Wayikra, right? So we just checking out the Torah portion for this. We're in Wayikra. And we notice that in this Torah portion does go over the area speaking of oaths. And then, just right before this, I think we were reading Hebrews 10, 1 through 18, right? We were reading Hebrews 10, 1 through 18. So we found that to be very interesting also. But another one of the problem with the Israelites over here, and we can get to it straight up. Listen, we cannot forsake the promised land. We cannot forsake Ethiopia. We cannot forsake the King of Kings, Qedamawi, Haile Selassie. We cannot forsake our inheritance. Just because you're in another land and you've been there so long and you don't remember who you were, and now that you come to understanding of a principle that we are Israelites, which is understandable. I do agree. I do agree with the whole Israelite, that we are Israelites. But when we read the Torah, and we try to go around the fact that these were actual locations in the land over there in Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia, Africa, up near Palestine, some of those areas up there. you know, where Abraham journeyed from, even Haran, and dealing with the areas all the way from the Tigris to the Euphrates, the Gihon, the Nile. You know, we cannot deny these parts of history that belong to us as Israelites. And it's like you brothers have gotten over here to the North Country, and you come so far in time that you forget that the biblical narrative is dealing with those geographical locations, and it's dealing with the reality of Ethiopia. Aren't you as the children of the Ethiopians to me, O Israel? You know what I mean? I love that verse. That's like my trademark verse right there. I always say that verse. Amos 9:7, because no matter what you say, you can't go around. I get to see a brother getting very upset about that verse right there. You know, notice you can't go around that verse, but there's even a 9/11 rainbow with this word Horma right here. And the reason I'm telling you, Israelite brothers who don't Amein in the King of Kings, Qedamawi, Haile, Selassie, JAH, Rastafari, to get acquainted with the truth and become more studied and more learned, and even though you may disagree with something, one of the things that can be agreeable is the basic Torah concepts to be able to live out life. You know what I mean? Those basic concepts and tools are there. All of this stuff about what you don't think about the King of Kings, which we know you're bringing down, you know, harm on yourself. You know what I mean? But thankful that the Almighty is merciful, give you time to understand, you know, giving you more time and more time to understand. But, you know, this keep on going on, there's going to be some bad results for you in that. You know, that's a fact, right? And the reason we say that, and that's why I point to this word Horma right here. Now, why did Horma come up? I use the word Horma because there's a verse that specifically always usually sits with me. And the verse is Deuteronomy 1:44. Because we notice when Nathaniel was speaking with priest Isaac, he was in Deuteronomy. I think he was using Deuteronomy chapter 11 verses, I think 22 or 33, one of those. And he was speaking about how when Israel adopts these other gods, which is exactly what they have done. They have adopted another god that has caused them to revile their own Elohim. You know what I'm saying? Their own Elohim. You know, we know other people got their Elohims, but we talking about our Elohim, our El, our, you know, our JAH, Rastafari. You know, they've come to the point where they denied this because they don't understand it completely the way that they should. All right. So the verse that stands out with me is one of the verses, and it always did, was Deuteronomy 1:44. I also noticed this, and this is something that's also interesting to me too. I also noticed the correlation in the word Horma. It also at times reminds me also of the word Korah. Korah. Now we know Korah is talking about the bald heads. We know what happened to Korah. Now, basically, what these brothers saying, they saying we Korah, because we are Amein in His Imperial Majesty, Qedamawi, Haile, Selassie, JAH, Rastafari. They calling us the Korahite. They saying, you know, the Korahites, they were stubborn. They went against the teachings of Moses, right? And the ground opened up and they went into the ground. And, you know, there's many other moments, other things that happened to Israel as an example of their disobedience or their rebelliousness towards the truth or towards the King of Kings. You know what I mean? That at this time period, even at that time, they didn't understand it. If they understood it at that time, they wouldn't have even made those mistakes. So the verse that does stand out to me, and the Amorites which dwelt in that mountain, Deuteronomy 1:44, and the Amorites which dwelt in that mountain came out against you and chased you as bees do and destroyed you in Seir, even to Horma, even to Horma. Now, the interesting thing is that speaking about His Imperial Majesty at the Geneva Convention, who came to plead the cause of Ethiopia, but the truth is that if His Majesty failed, black people fail. And His Majesty didn't fail, but black people failed and His Majesty won. You see what I'm saying? And that could be hard for you to understand. His Majesty won, and because His Majesty won, black people are able to win. Even though black people failed, His Majesty who won. I know that's hard to understand. All right, but you gotta let that's one of those that's one of those teachings right there. His Majesty won, though. You know what I mean? His Majesty won, and black people failed His Majesty, besides those who were loyal to His Majesty. So more few were loyal, obviously, to His Majesty, to His Imperial Majesty, than that were the more few were loyal than were not loyal. You know, so more were unloyal, and that's the reason that they had their own king. You know, they allowed their own king to be removed off the throne, right? So, and when that happened, a lot of bad things came behind that. But this is the same thing that we say with the Horma. This is the same thing we say with the Horma. Now, when we look at Horma, right? Why did Horma come about? Why did Horma come about? Now, when we go to the beginning of Numbers chapter 14, right? It says, and all the congregation lifted up their voice and cried, and the people wept that night. And all the children of Israel murmured against Moses and against Aaron. And the whole congregation, right, said to them, would Haile Elohim, that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would Elohim, we had died in the wilderness. So now, you know, so this is two places now. You know what I mean? So this is basically, we have to put this in the perspective of today. This is what they're saying about His Imperial Majesty. Now, you got to imagine that. So you have a people brainwashed now that Egypt, right? He could have just let us, he could just let us die in Egypt, or he could just let us die in the wilderness, right? Rather than go on to seek the promised land, because they didn't have the faith. That's what this was all about. This was all about they didn't have the faith to actually go forward and take the promised land. So we can go back to the days of Joshua. So what we have is, and this is interesting, this is why what we have is, because could it be that, are you afraid to go and take the promised land, and to the point where you gather your own numbers against your own people and your own God because of something that you don't believe within your own self, and you presume to be doing the work of God? But even though you are holding your people back, or you're causing them to cry and murmur all night, because you got to understand something. Whenever they saw that video with this man up here talking bad about His Imperial Majesty, anytime you see an Israelite talking bad about the King of Kings, His Imperial Majesty, just know that nothing good could come behind that. All right? And the only good that could come behind that is if there was a brethren or a prophet to come and maybe correct the situation, or try to redeem the people before the Negev or before the plague might come out. You understand what I'm saying? But we know for a fact, when we hear some of the stuff these people saying, especially talking about His Imperial Majesty, Qedamawi Haile Selassie, talking about the promised land, dealing with all of Africa over there, Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia, that was given to Abraham, unless you call in the Torah a liar, because you're not calling those of us who are Amein in the Torah, you know, a liar. We know what we're reading. We know what we're seeing. We know what this word says. Okay? But who you're calling a liar, right? Who you're calling a liar? Okay, we didn't know. They can't see that verse up there at the top. Let me go back a little bit. You know what I mean? Kind of open up a little bit, so you can see that verse up there. Yeah, that's the first verse, right? Yeah, where it talks about the people murmuring, and you know, Numbers 14, verse 2. And see, look, this is what we gotta understand. Look, this is what we gotta understand. This promised land that it tells us in this Bible, you know, that all of Saudi Arabia, over there, down the middle of the Nile, all the way going down there towards Kenya, right? what was given to Abraham, that circle of the promised land, and we deny that, if we deny that, and we deny the prophecy of the second advent of Christ, we deny the King of Kings, we deny God the Father, because you remember, Yeshua said that we will be drawn to him through his Father. That's what he said. That's what he said. So remember, up here, this is the verse we're talking about, where it says, and all the children of Israel murmured against Moses and against Aharon. And the whole congregation said to them, would Ha Elohim that we had died in the land of Egypt, or... Oh. Open that back up, right? And so, yeah. Here we go. So, would Ha Elohim that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would God, as it says, you know, the King James Version, would God we had died in the wilderness? So they said Egypt, right? Egypt and the wilderness, right? So now they saying that, you know, this murmur, this complaining caused the people to say, man, he want us to die in Egypt and the wilderness. You know what I'm saying? So, and you look at the situation for black people right now where they fighting for reparations. You know what I mean? And, you know, the thing is, for reparations, EWF, Ethiopian World Federation, the real Ethiopian World Federation. Make sure you get with the real EWF. All right? There's these other versions of, hopefully not anymore. Hopefully not anymore. But going forward, get with the real EWF, seeking reparations for we the black peoples of the world, and us, especially over here, the main ones we talking about, the Afro American Jews, the brothers and sisters up in America, you know, up in North America, USA. Yes, we're talking about the black Jews up there. You know what I mean? Sponsoring, coming from the line of Judah Society. We asking for reparations for our people, for black people of North America. You know what I'm saying? Caught up here in the wilderness. That's up here crying stuff like this. And all the children of Israel murmured against Moses. They murmured against Jesus Christos, Yeshua, and against Aharon. They murmured against Qedamawi, Haile, Selassie. And the whole congregation said to them, would Haile, Qedamawi, Haile, Selassie, that we would had died in the land of Egypt, or would Haile we had died in the wilderness, both places, Egypt and the wilderness, right? Egypt and the wilderness. Who's responsible because you too wild to understand the truth? Whose fault is it that you become too wild to understand the truth? You know what I mean? Because that's really what happened to us over. We got too wild. We got too immoral. We're immorally undisciplined. And when you become immorally undisciplined, when you start reading plain truth, it's hard for you to understand. So let's keep going. And wherefore has the Yahweh, JAH, Rastafari, brought us to this land to fall by the sword? What you see going on right now? Now, I can honestly say this. I can say this to Bishop of Nathaniel of IUIC. I can say this. I can tell you like this. I haven't seen the good days of paradise from what you're talking about, brother. I have seen these things happen. I've seen brothers falling by the sword. I see this happening every day. It's still happening. I see the Egypt part. We still in that. And I see the wilderness part. And I see the people crying and complaining about where they really supposed to be going because of messages like your message, for example. You know what I mean? So that's my question to you. You know what I mean? I can tell you that I have seen this. I haven't seen any kind of promised land, or, you know, other than what brothers create over here in the land. You know what I mean? So, you know, those that are creating, able to buy some land, and they're able to create, you know, thank Jah, a kibbutz or a community system, a healthy community based on the Torah lifestyle. That's a blessing. I'm glad to see that. But definitely not from talking down on the King of Kings, Qedamawi, Haile Selassie, and Yeshua on strange land with nowhere to go. Yep, on strange land with nowhere to go. Because remember, you in the wilderness of North America. And this, for the most part, is like being in strange land with nowhere to go. You know what I mean? So yeah, let us sit on that because we want to go further with this. And this is what we saw in Horma. So what are you getting to by taking the people away from the fact that we supposed to be going towards the promised land? So let us go further here. Okay, so 14:3. And wherefore has the Yahweh brought us to this land to fall by the sword, right? Because we see him falling by the sword. They saying that Jah brought them to this land to fall by the sword, right? But yet it's been 400 years and you're supposed to come out, right? So why are you still falling by the sword? And then whose sword are you falling by? You falling by both swords. You falling by the sword of man. You falling by the sword of Egypt. You falling by the sword of the law because they don't want to give you reparations. They're still oppressing you, right? They moved other people in not to give you anything. I mean, and even for that matter, just to make them slaves too, because that's what they do. They turn people into slaves. Basically, wage slaves where you can't save nothing and you can't grow over time. What kind of economy is created where you've been working for 10, 20 years and you ain't even saved enough to get no land or no community, no community support. You don't gather as a community and buy land together and come together and grow crops together and, have your own schools, your own hospitals, your own nursing homes, taking care of your own people. None of that. But you have time to talk down on the King of Kings, Qedamawi Haile Selassie, who was creating much of that. As we're going forth on our speeches by His Imperial Majesty, but we have to stop here for a moment and touch on it. This is very important. So this talking down on the King of Kings, Qedamawi Haile Selassie, coming from our black Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christos, you know what I mean? When he already told us about the Father and gave us all the blueprints of what that was and who that is and who that would be, you know what I mean? And even we have Psalms like Psalm 87:4. Psalm 87:4, I'll make mention of Babylon, Rahab, Tyre, Philistia, with Ethiopia, that this man was born here. You know what I mean? So there's many examples of things don't go well. Not only just talking about the King of Kings, Qedamawi Haile Selassie, but then that would also be talking about Ethiopia. And we see what happens when they talk bad about Ethiopia too. I mean, look at Numbers 12. Things do not go good when an Israelite speaks down on the King of Kings or he speaks down on Israel. You know what I mean? And let's continue and go further. So, and wherefore has the Yahweh brought us to this land, right? We was talking about that fall by the sword, that our wives, now check this out, and our children should be prey. Where brothers be at in this land? Why they wives and children pray? Notice the black household, how they try to demasculate, right? Where's the men at? Look at that. Where's the men at? Why the wives and the children pray, right? Because they created a society, a working society where a man will fail. So no matter how hard you work, you become like a useless worker. You keep working and working for the corporate interest, right? So for the most part, you're not working as black Israel. You're not working as the children of the King of Kings, Qedamawi Haile Selassie. You're not working as the children of the Lion of Judah, right? But more so, you're working as these individuals. It's more self-gratifying. And even if I was to say that other races of people do that, it don't matter because they have one up on you. Their system has one up on you. You can't say that. You're not like them. You know what I'm saying? You're not like the people that run the country and run the system. They run you by your race and you nationally are no one. You know what I'm saying? And what you would have that would make you someone is Israel, the fact that your ties to this Torah, your God, Ha Elohim, that will make you that nation. A federation, an Ethiopian World Federation, we the black peoples of the world. If you knew better how to go forth about that and get in contact with the right people. See what I'm saying? But instead, we had this fighting going on amongst Israel talking down on their own God and King. You know, so yes, I. We're gonna pause for the cause. Shalom.